no rounds. Rounds were usually determined by the first knockdown. So they could go for half an hour. As soon as the guy fell, they got a minute's rest, and that determined the first round.
Legends, you know, hard man. You know, you couldn't pay him enough respect.
We step back in time and find a lost boxing arena and discover a city's hidden boxing history. John Dowson is a published historian.
From the beginning of the 1890s, the gold rush was in full swing, and CY Connor only arrived in 1892 and he was building the harbour, so the harbour wasn't actually finished till 1897. And there was just a huge log jam of people and cargo trying to get through Fremantle and out to the goldfields. Also, it was a real boom time. Fremantle was basically almost totally rebuilt in the late 1890s. With the money that was coming back from the gold rush.
Boxing quickly became popular as there was money to be made in and out of the ring, and as a result, Mick Dooley, 36 years of age and reputed as being undefeated as a bare-knuckle boxer, he now found himself holding the Australian heavyweight glove title. Peter Felix, originally born in the West Indies but now residing in the eastern states, he stood at 6 foot 3.5 inches and weighed 186 pounds. He considered himself the #1 contender for the Australian heavyweight title, and as such, travelled to Western Australia to seek out Mick Dooley. Bill Doherty, 30 years of age, originally hailing from Richmond, Victoria, he had recently arrived in Fremantle after reputedly winning the world's fastest bare-knuckle contest with a 5-second KO over the Englishman George Cooper. He also held the South African middleweight title. Ironically, Jem Mace was a friend of the Marquis of Queensberry, and it was Jem Mace who helped introduce the Marquis of Queensberry's boxing rules into Australia in around 1877. By 1884, bare-knuckle boxing was banned in all Australian colonies.
But all combatants must now fight inside a square boxing ring. They must wear gloves, being a minimum of 8 ounces, wear a protective lower body shield and also a mouth guard. The first type of boxing gloves used were just basically leather, hand wraps. Okay, they're wrapped around the hands, around the knuckles, obviously to prevent facial cuts for the fighters. They then eventually graduated to an 8-ounce glove and to a 10-ounce glove.
At Fremantle's foremost boxing arena and outdoor theatre, Old English Fair, 8-ounce gloves were compulsory, and police would regularly attend fights to check the gloves. Until recently discovered, Old English Fair has been lost and forgotten for over 100 years. In 1897, Old English Fair was built on a vacant block of land in the centre of Fremantle, which would eventually become King's Theatre and more recently Metropolis nightclub. Mick Dooley and those from the bare-knuckle generation were now adapting their low-guard style to the use of gloves, or the pillows as they were referred to back then. Boxing as a sport was evolving.
legends. You know, hard men. You know, you couldn't pay them enough respect. And back in those days, they were literally fighting for their next meal. So you have to admire a man that has to fight for his family and fight for his meals. Bare knuckle, 20, 30, 40, 50 rounds, incredible. The durability and just the raw toughness of those men back then is something that, you know, I guess in the modern era we wouldn't know about.
Over the next 4 years, the Australian heavyweight glove title would change hands between Dooley, Doherty and eventually Felix. By 1910, there were more than 4 venues in the Fremantle Central Business District offering boxing as entertainment on a regular basis. Until, in 1911, national controversy was stirred when tragedy struck.
Died after boxing contest. The Fremantle case. 8 men committed for trial. The inquest into the circumstances of the death of Harold Wooding, who expired shortly after taking part in a boxing tournament at the Fremantle Stadium, was concluded today. The jury returned a verdict that the deceased died from edema, following on heart failure.
Mick Dooley, now in retirement, was the referee, and the deceased boxer was a pupil of Bill Doherty's. Although police regularly attended matches to verify the use of correct gloves, doctors and pre-match medical examinations were now compulsory. Fremantle's boxing heyday may be over now, but the great men of their time helped develop the modern sport as we know it.
All boxers must submit a serology at least every 3 months. Professional boxers, that is, that obviously picks up things like HIV, hepatitis and those sort of blood-affected illnesses. Also, their past history in regards to knockouts and concussions. If a fighter is knocked out, he cannot participate in another professional bout for 90 days.
The sport's in a pretty healthy position at the moment. There's a lot of fighters in Australia that are ranked in the top 15, and there's been a fair few world champions in recent years. But saying that, the sport, the governing bodies have taken over to a degree, and it's kind of it's not lost its purity, but if it doesn't watch out and it's not careful, it may lose its purity and I guess its appeal. A lot of fighters used to be promoted by one person. He had hundreds of fighters under him. He just controlled them like puppets. So in that aspect, it's changing. Fighters are starting to realise that they can look after themselves, and I think they should be too, because they're the ones in there that are being punished physically.